Well, it's good to be back with you for another day of Bible study. My name's Kevin. I have the privilege of leading Christ Table here. If you'd like to know more about Christ Table, who we are, what we do, very simple to find out the answer to that. All you got to do is go to the URL that's right up there in the corner of the screen, www.christstable.today. If you'd like to know more about this study in particular, that URL is right in front of me, go.christstable.today/gameon. You can download a PDF there with study questions, with the Bible text, with some background information and content that will help you dive deeper into every day of this study. Absolutely free, no strings attached. You don't have to put your email address in there in order to download it and get it. It will always be there and available no matter how late you're watching this from when it originally was aired. If you'd like a printed copy of that, we do have some printed copies of that material that's on there, as well as the youth and family devotional. It comes as part of a box of spiritual resources. You can obtain that too on that website. No need to do that, but it does help us out financially. It helps you out if you acquire one of those. And so a great option there for that if you want to go beyond just the free downloadable PDFs of the content. Today, we are looking into the book of John, chapter 12, verse 24. We've not been in the Gospels much in this study. What we're doing, rather than focusing on the text, we're focusing on chess game pieces and the personalities, the strategies, the way in which chess mirrors the spiritual life. And then we're just kind of looking into some different places in Scripture that kind of reinforce this idea. And so it's a bit of an out of the ordinary study for us, but it's a fun one to be doing right here at the very end of summer and the beginning of fall. Depending on where you live, this week has felt a lot like fall with the weather. So we're in John chapter 12, verse 24. Now, each week we're looking for 5 days at a different chess piece. So 5 days, 6 chess pieces over 6 weeks. And this week we are looking at the bishop. This is our 4th chess piece. Today is the last day where we are looking at this piece. Next week we'll move on, I think, to the queen is next week, and then the final week is the king. And so today we're finishing up talking about the bishop, which, as a member of the clergy, one of my favorite pieces. Maybe not my favorite piece, but I love the name maybe more than any of the others. The bishop, the cleric. And that it moves diagonally, because oftentimes I find myself not moving in straight lines, but moving or not moving, directly forward or moving backward, but just kind of moving sideways, moving diagonally. Really just kind of that awkward direction for me, no matter what it is in life, is the direction in which I head. So one of the things about the bishop, though, and its movements is that experienced players will occasionally sacrifice a bishop to break open an opponent's position, trading immediate material for long-term strategic advantage. And so obviously there are other persons that can be utilized for this, other pieces that can be utilized for this, but oftentimes the bishop is one of those that primarily strategically can and is utilized as a sacrificial lamb in the game in order to open up a strategy or open up a window or an advantage further down the road and more moves that are going forward than perhaps the bishop itself is worth. And it kind of makes me sad, to be a bishop. Do I really want to be the person who's sacrificed? That doesn't feel good, right? As a clergy person, to be the person who's up for sacrifice. But, honestly, when you think about it, maybe it is appropriate that the piece that oftentimes is the sacrificial piece is the bishop, is the one that is the clergy on the board. Would that be something that you would essentially expect a clergy person to do, to be willing to give their life for a greater cause, for somebody else? I mean, I don't have to go far to talk about Jesus who did that, right? But even in our own lives, wouldn't we want to expect people who are spiritual people to be a little less self-centered and a little more maybe focused on what they could do for other people, maybe even with the ultimate sacrifice? I mean, I think so. And the best strategies in life sometimes require personal cost for the greater good, right? I mean, I'm sure that if I were to ask you, Are there any moments or points in your journey where you have had to sacrifice something, where there has been a personal cost to you, but the reason for doing that, or the value in making that decision, was for a greater good? I think that I probably wouldn't have to give you, most of us, much time to think about a moment where you saw that making a decision here that meant loss for you, or change, or transition, might end up in the long run being a better decision. There might be more return on investment. There might be the ability of somebody else not just to survive, but to thrive. Sometimes the best strategy is going to cost something of you, and you're going to have to take a hit for the greater good. In John chapter 12, verse 24, there is this statement that I love from Jesus. Truly, very truly, I tell you that unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it cannot produce grain. Having grown up watching gardens and my grandparents plant and harvest lots and lots and lots of fruits and vegetables, having grown up in the rural Midwest, where all there are, as far as the eye can see, are endless fields of corn and soybeans, is a reminder to me that unless a kernel, unless a seed essentially falls to the ground and dies, there will be no yield. There will be no harvest without there being a sacrifice. This seems to very easily move us forward into our own journey, where unless you're willing to give things up, unless you're willing to let go of things, unless there are things in your life that you're willing to die or to allow to die, you may stop growing. You may stop changing. You may stop being able to take on new things, or good things, or better things. So Jesus here, and this is not the only place that he teaches this, but Jesus here taught that sometimes breakthroughs require sacrifice. Sometimes the road that you're supposed to take, or the best road for you, requires something to be given up. Sometimes there is a toll. Literal, figurative. Sometimes there's a toll in the game of life. Letting go of immediate gains for the sake of greater flourishing. Sacrificing the good for the great. That thing that you're holding on to may have been good, may have been helpful, may have been advantageous, but maybe it's not great. Maybe it's not what you're called to do. Maybe it's not what you're called to be. Maybe there is something greater that you are supposed to do, or that you are supposed to do for somebody else. I think that's something that we can think about. What might be able or be needful to be sacrificed so that headway can be made in other more important areas? Chess is all about strategy, right? So in today's study materials, we have several questions that are in there as a part of the study materials. Every day at the end of the study, I like to give one of those questions if possible. This one comes right out of that material today. How can you discern when personal cost is worth the potential for community breakthrough? So whenever you're thinking about your community, whenever you're thinking about what good things may be helpful for your community, in that way, what on behalf of people who are around you, what can you give up? Or maybe even more important, this question asks is, how do you even find what to sacrifice? How do you know the barriers and the edges? How do you know how far to go and how far is too far when it comes to personal sacrifice or personal cost? Some people would say no cost to me is too great for other people. Other folks would say, I'm not giving anything. No one else has earned that. No one else has deserved that. These are my resources. I'm not wasting time or energy or money on that. Or maybe there's somewhere on the spectrum in between. So how do you discern? How do you discern when personal cost is worth the potential for community breakthrough? How much are you willing to sacrifice? How far are you willing to go for good things to come to your community? I think that's a question that is powerful, and it's also a question I'd love to have your answers to. So in the comments or the chat, wherever you're watching, as you walk through today's questions or as you walk through this question, it would be great. Just put in there a little note that says what you think in response to this. Well, it's been good to be with you today. Looking forward to being back with you next week on Sunday as we continue on in this study with a Sunday worship gathering. But